Hello and welcome back. This is part 8, movies I like. I apologize for part 7. I only got through 3 movies. Okay, let's move along then. So, as I teased you in part 7, Rashomon. I don't think you can be very interested in Japan and Japanese film in particular without being familiar with the work of Akira Kurosawa. Kind of the Alfred Hitchcock, Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg of Japan all rolled into one. Undoubtedly the most famous Japanese filmmaker of all time, and deservedly so. His films such as The Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, and Ran, as well as Rashomon are some of the best films ever made. And you owe it to yourself, especially if you're interested in Japan, to see some Kurosawa films. So, Rashomon. Rashomon, for those of you who don't know about it, is one of Kurosawa's very first films, and certainly the first one that got a lot of international attention. It was made a long time ago. It was made in 1950 or 1949 and released in 50. It's in black and white, and it stars my favorite Japanese actor and one of my favorite actors, period, of all time, and that's Toshiro Mifune, who became famous for playing Lord Toranaga in Shogun. But also, of course, he was kind of the Robert De Niro to Kurosawa's Scorsese. They made a lot of very, very good movies together and became kind of linked. They had a falling out later in life in the 60s, and they stopped making movies together. Anyway, Rashomon is so famous amongst film buffs and people in general that there is an actual phenomenon, I guess you would call it, that is named after the film. It's called the Rashomon effect. And this is basically what happens in the film, in case you haven't seen it. There is an incident out in the woods in Japan, in ancient feudal Japan, involving 3 people. A nobleman, a woman, and kind of a ronin, like a masterless samurai type of person. And there's also another witness to the incident. I believe he was a woodcutter. So the 4 people all kind of see what happens. And the structure of the movie is that they're all gathered together before the Japanese equivalent of a judge and tell what happened, tell their side of the story. And they each tell it slightly differently. And Toshiro Mifune plays the kind of masterless samurai character. So this whole concept of flashbacks to a previous event that is then played out, and it differs from each different perspective, has been copied and copied and copied so many times now. But Rashomon is really the first one that employed this device, and it's an amazing, amazing movie. And you'll watch it now as a modern audience and think, God, I've seen it before, but obviously back in 1950 people hadn't seen it before. And there was just a big movie with like Dennis Quaid and Forrest Whitaker and William Hurt where the president is down in Mexico or somewhere, and it was called Vantage Point or something. Complete Rashomon ripoff. I mean, you can't not, if you're going to do that kind of a movie, you can't not rip it off. It's become so ingrained in the culture now. Snake Eyes was a Nick Cage movie that I think Brian De Palma directed a few years ago, complete Rashomon ripoff, where they're at the boxing match and there's all these cameras and who saw what and everything. So if you've never seen Rashomon, highly recommend it. An amazing disc. This is the Criterion Collection disc of it, and the Criterion Collection is of course the Rolls Royce of DVDs. So I highly recommend it. Genius is probably one of my all-time favorite comedy movies, and even more so than maybe Monty Python and the Holy Grail and stuff, is a movie that I used to quote a lot when I was a teenager and a young adult. It stars Val Kilmer, and Val Kilmer plays a genius, basically, who is at a college and a new student comes to his dorm room who's like 15 and is one of these kids that's so smart that, you know, they graduate from high school early, and it's about them trying to develop a laser, and the military wants to use this laser as a weapon. But it's just incredibly funny, has some incredibly quotable dialogue. I love the soundtrack. So seek it out if you haven't seen it. It's called Real Genius. Back before Val Kilmer was a serious actor. He made some really funny comedies, including Top Secret by the guys who made Airplane, which is another really funny film you should try to see. Okay, Requiem for a Dream is the next movie. As it says right there, Darren Aronofsky, who directed Pi, P-I, the mathematical symbol, and then this film. Recently did a movie called The Fountain, which I rented, and didn't really like, to be honest. It was just too out there for me. Requiem for a Dream is a heavy, heavy movie. It's about drug addiction, and it again stars one of, you know, the actresses I've talked about before, Jennifer Connelly, in an amazing, daring performance as a girl who gets addicted to heroin, I believe it is in the film, and the lengths that she'll go to get the drug. It also includes an incredible performance by Ellen Burstyn, an older actress who plays somebody that gets addicted to pills in the movie and what happens to her. And then there's a main male character played by Stephen Dorff. I think it's Stephen Dorff. Who also has his demons. And it's just one of those harrowing movies that you're like, man, I'm just so glad that's not happening to me. But at the same time, it's like the characters in it aren't that much different from people you might know. So it kind of makes you think a little bit. And it's just really well filmed and put together, but it has scenes that you'll remember for a long, long time. Excellent, excellent film. I highly recommend it. But very heavy, very dramatic. You have to be in the right mood to watch it. The Right Stuff. And I got a double disc version of it. Easily one of my favorite PG movies of all time. PG, for those of you not in America, is kind of the rating. That means kind of anyone can go see it. There's nothing offensive in it. Parental guidance. It's about a 3-hour movie about the Mercury astronauts. The first astronauts to go up into space under the American space program before the Apollo astronauts later obviously went to the moon. And I was born on July 6, 1969, 14 days, exactly 2 weeks before man first stepped on the moon on July 20th, 1969. So I've always kind of had a fascination with the space program, and you know, I never wanted to be an astronaut or anything, but I just find the whole concept that, you know, we did this amazing thing as a nation after John F. Kennedy, you know, his famous speech about going to the moon, and you know, and these guys that basically were test pilots who, you know, went so beyond that and went into outer space. And the movie is really their story. Chuck Yeager, who's kind of famous in America because he went on to endorse products in commercials, but was one of these famous test pilots who never actually became an astronaut, but he was the first man to go faster than the speed of sound, Mach 1. And it's told in such a way and filmed in such a way that it's kind of got a documentary feel to it. There's a voiceover narration by a great, great actor who's just got this very laconic type of speaking, and he's like, there's a demon that lives in the sky, and you just got to hear his delivery. It's just fantastic. And there's so many stars in it who went on to be huge later. Ed Harris and Dennis Quaid and Sam Shepard and you know, Jeff Goldblum, and just a ton of people in it. The music is great, and it's based on a fantastic, fantastic novel by Tom Wolfe. And I've read the book, and the book is amazing too. So if you like space program, if you saw Apollo, what was it, Apollo 13, and you like that type of a movie, The Right Stuff, it's 3 hours, but it's completely worth it. And it's just inspiring. It's one of those movies that just makes me proud, I guess, to be an American, but just proud to be human when I watch it. Like, you know, look what we can do when we really set our minds to it. So, yeah, great movie. Okay, that should probably do it for this time. Part 9 coming up. I'm going to film it right now. Okay? Peace. Thanks for watching.